Alright, hello, welcome back. This is going to be our Docker GridDB video. So we will be installing GridDB onto our machine via Docker container. If you're not familiar with Docker, I won't explain too much. It's kind of out of the scope of the video, but essentially you can think of Docker as basically the premise is it'll containerize an application for you, and then you can run that application on various machines with the same configuration just by using Docker. So in this instance, the obvious example here is we're going to use GridDB running in a container. So the image for GridDB is hosted directly right now on Docker Hub. So the basic premise will be me right now as a consumer of this, I will grab the image directly from here using Docker commands, and I can run GridDB as a server on my machine simply by running it in a Docker container. I don't have to worry about installing it. I don't have to worry about apt repository. I don't have to worry about, even having Ubuntu 18, because this Docker image is basically running a very stripped down version of Ubuntu 18 inside a container. And then within that image, GridDB will be running, and then it'll be hooked up to our host, our network host, which will be our local machine, and it'll be just like GridDB is running on our machine. So to showcase this, I did want to showcase right now that GridDB is not running. So I was going to run this sample, but I realized it's going to have a big error. So let's just switch over to our GS admin user, and let's take a look at gstat. gstat admin, and you can see it says no node is running, right? So let's exit. Okay, clear this. Now let's say we want to run our GridDB server using Docker Hub. You could pull the image directly from here, and then you'll have the image running. No, you have the image stored on your local machine, and then from there you can run Docker run, which with the image name explicitly named in the command, and then it'll use the image that's loaded in your local machine to run GridDB. So if we run this, it'll pull the image and then it'll run in one command, but it'll run in multicast mode. And since we've been using fixless mode for the entirety of the course so far, I would prefer to run it in fixless mode. So in the README here, you can actually see there's an easy way to do that. So you just need to add this flag here, notification member is as one, and that'll tell the config file that starts GridDB like, hey, we want this to be in fixless mode. And if you want to be even more explicit, you can set some of these variables explicitly, and it'll set it for us in our config, so then we can actually set our cluster name to whatever we want and our password to whatever we want. So I want to save this command. I'm going to paste it in here because I prefer it to be one line, and then I'm going to try to run this on my machine. Okay, so the name is going to be GridDB video. Okay. As explained, the network is host, so that'll use my host machine, this machine here, as the host. So all the network stuff will be tied directly to my host machine. Oftentimes, when developers use Docker, it's preferred to have the network environment be completely separated, which is something that Docker can do and something it excels at and something it's very good at. Something that's very useful oftentimes. But for now, we're just going to use the host, and then the password and cluster name, we're just using all defaults. Admin, my cluster, this is the flag, so we just set this the same. And the image name is GridDBnet 5.0 Ubuntu 18. So this naming scheme with the account name / image name, it'll tell Docker immediately, hey, this is a Docker Hub image. So it'll try to find it on your local machine first. If it doesn't find it, it'll look directly on Docker Hub. So here I will, okay, it doesn't like these backslashes because it's going to be, it's supposed to be multi-line. No, so let's just get rid of these. And then it'll try to find the image name on my local machine first, and I believe it won't find it, and then it'll download it directly. So here, unable to find image GridDBnet locally, pulling from GridDBnet. So exactly as I stated. So actually, I might have made a mistake here. So I actually forgot to include the flag to run my Docker in the background, which is kind of annoying. So now this terminal is taken up. So I will clear this and I will make this bigger. Okay, so if I run Docker PS, we'll see here, this is running now. It's been up for 30 seconds. And here it's join node. So it's already up and running and ready to go. So if we copy this container name, you can see in the bottom of this, README, if we do this command here, so that the Docker exec will allow us to interact with our container. So here we can do copy this container ID. And basically we're saying, hey, I want to run this gs.u admin. So good thing we set our password as admin. I want you to run this command in this container. So if you enter, you can see now GridDB is up and running and ready to go. Yep, my cluster, and it's a fixed list mode. And then now the test will be to run the Java code. So as I said, the Java is nothing really important, but it does run Java code and it does require the credentials, right? So let's try to run it. Yeah, so it takes the, this sample takes the credentials as the command line arguments. They're not hard coded into the code. So since GridDB is running on our host machine, even though this is generally used for scenarios where you're running GridDB natively on bare metal, it should still work. Oh, it's because I need to export my, whoops. I think we need to have the grid store 5.0 jar in here, and then it should work, hopefully. Okay, there you go. Yep, so the sample works now, and yeah, that's basically it. So as you can see, I got GridDB up and running in 10 seconds. If I wasn't speaking so much, yeah, it would have been 10 seconds. Next, I want to showcase persistent storage. So if you want to do persistent storage, first we got to stop our running GridDB container. Normally, if you had the network was actually self-contained within your Docker container, you actually could just run as many as your memory could handle, as many GridDB containers. But since we're using the host as a network, we can't double up. So let's look at our running processes. So you can see here the container name is here. And here it says to stop the server, you can just say docker kill container name. So actually, the nice thing is you actually don't have to copy and paste this entire container ID. As long as you get the first 3 or 4 and they're unique, Docker will know what to do. And you go here, and it stopped. Okay. So next up, like I said, I want to do persistent storage. I think I actually could have just used GridDB video too. So you don't have to use container ID. You could use the name that you explicitly set, which I guess that's why it's for, is to make it easier. But anyway, okay. So I have it pasted here. So, whoops. What did I do? Okay. Sorry, 1 second here. Things got screwed up. Okay, sorry about that. Let's clear this. Okay, so now we're running it again, but this time I'm running the D flag here tells it to run in the background, so it won't take up the entire terminal like how it did on this side. And next I added storage to the name because this time I want to have persistent storage. And yeah, the way you add that is you do my vol. And we're telling it explicitly, hey, like use the storage on the host machine here in varlib grid store. So actually my machine here already has data in there. So it should just repurpose that and use it even though my GridDB server is running via Docker container. It'll still have persistent storage. So the previous way I was running it, after I close down that Docker image, all the information that we would have stored in there would have been flushed because it all would have been stored in memory. But if you explicitly tell your Docker container, hey, I want to store my data here in varlib grid store, whenever you're done with your container, if you decide to shut it down, or if you shut down your whole machine, all of this data will be flushed to disk explicitly here in varlib grid store. Okay, and then of course, yeah, we're running in fixed list again. So let's do this. Okay. We can see here, same thing, it's running, so we can do docker logs, and you can give it the name, so GridDB video storage. And yep, it's up and running and it's joined the node, and basically everything's the same, but now the data that we store into it will be saved into it. So let's try to drop into the shell. And because it's running on network host, it should theoretically work the same way, and it should still work like a native GridDB server is running on the machine. So let's try the shell. And yeah, it works. So you can see here, connection to NoSQL is successful, and the connection to NewSQL is successful. Okay, let's try create time series. Let's try video test. Compression type, and then let's try just something like this. Guess it doesn't have to be too complicated. Okay, yeah, everything works. Search container. So since I have the persistent storage in the same location where I normally run GridDB, not within container, I'm curious to see if it'll find all of my previous containers. And so it does not. Okay. So it just finds the containers that I do when I'm running that GridDB Docker container. Okay. Well, good to know. All right. Okay, that's all. Thanks for watching.